It's just a brush and it's on fire.
To start off, we need to collect and modify our assets. So I'm going to go to File, New. 700 by 700 should be fine at 72 dpi. And if I press Control 1, I can see, okay, this is going to be the maximum width that our fire brush would need to be, or will end up being. If I needed a bigger one, I would just use a bigger canvas, but this will work for my needs. And I'm going to grab some stock. So click and drag this out here. And let me just click on layers so I could see them both. And just you type the word and magically it appears. This is free stock footage, which I think is beautiful. And you got Unsplash, Pixabay, we got It's Fire. Pexels, I was able to get it at a certain point, maybe when I updated to the latest point release. It stopped working, but probably they'll fix that soon enough. But Unsplash has plenty of good fire images, and I really didn't even go to Pixabay. But click and drag this out here, and you could use Control Wheel, scroll down to zoom out and go to your Move tool. Hold down Control as you scale this down, so you could scale from the center. And I just want to make this just so the parts that I need fit and nothing, I don't want like any parts getting cut off at the top or the sides. So something like this will work. Some of these embers I'm going to erase anyway, so I don't need them. And also, if I just move this up for a second, I want to see my transparent background. So I'm going to click on Document, Transparent Background on, and this is going to help with the next step when I start making selections. And I'm going to use the magic, what do they call it? This flood, flood selection tool. It looks like a magic wand and it does magic stuff, but for I think for copyright reasons, they might have had to name it what they did, or maybe they just like flooding selections. So I'm going to set this to a relatively high number, like maybe 40%. This will give it a bigger search area. And I'm going to click somewhere kind of in the middle of my image in a mid-tone, not like a bright color, not like one of these dark shadowy colors here, but click somewhere around here. And if your selection isn't working or you're grabbing everything, then your tolerance is too high. If you're grabbing only a small area, like a few pixels, your tolerance is too low. But this does a pretty decent job. Now, I want to make some, add a little bit to my selection here. So I'm going to reduce this maybe down to like 15%. And I'm going to click on Add here. And I'm going to click just outside of my current selection. And that just added a little bit more of those darker areas. I am pretty happy with that. I'm going to go to Refine button here. So for those refined people that, drink tea with their pinkies up, this is the place for you. Now what I want to do is not look at this red background. Doesn't really do much for fire, but this white matte, now I could see a little bit more clearly what my selection is doing. And I got a lot of these dark areas. So, and you can also notice like I got a little brush on my screen. So what I can do is just start painting around the edges, and I'll fast forward. All right, so I painted around the edges, and that tells the software to find the semi-transparent parts. So all these dark areas, and I should do it for these interior parts too. All of these dark areas are, the dark black is the background, and these should start to get semi-transparent. And so finding all these will help to get a better selection. So this is a similar type thing you would do if you were making a selection around hair or fur and you wanted to get it to blend into the background. Pretty much done. I'm just finding all the really dark spots. You could use the left and right brackets to get a smaller brush. So this is going to help blend. And so there's more. It's like everywhere I paint, I see two more spots that need work, but I'm pretty much done. It's not going to be perfect, but I think this is as good as it needs to be for now. And let's hit apply. So we've got a selection, and we could create a mask by clicking this button here. and Control D to deselect. And I'll just press Control 1 to make sure I'm looking at this at 100%, because the next step I want to see things clearly. And what that is an adjustment layer. So I click the adjustment button. You can also find them here. I wish this list was alphabetical, but I guess you get used to where these things are after a while. So find curves, it's in the middle, and you click on that. And I don't need to really do any color correction, but I can go down to the alpha and I can adjust that, and I can start to eat into that background black color a little bit. And you can make adjustments on here as needed. You just don't want to get too far down where you start to see like a pixel edges, and just bring it as far down as you need. I think that looks good enough for me. And you could do a before and after. You see, yeah, you're doing a nice job getting rid of that muddy background with the curves adjustment. And now I want to bake this in, so I'll hold down Shift and click both of these layers, right click and go to Merge Visible. And then you get a third layer, which is a combination of the two that we just had. So the two we just had, we could delete them. And now the thing is, I want to start getting rid of some things that might look repetitive and be a giveaway for our brush. So I'm going to find my eraser tool and just erase some of these little parts here. This thing sticking out on the bottom on its own might start to look repetitive, so let's get rid of that. And maybe some of these floaty pieces. And I think actually this part too looks like it could stick out and look repetitive. And I'll just clean this up so it's not as flat on the bottom. And now I think this is good. So what I could do also is this part here that's sticking out on the left, it also might tend to look a little bit repetitive. So I'm just going to select it. Make sure we click on our layer and do a Control X and a Control V. So we pasted it in there. Now we've got one layer and another layer. So we've got two brushes basically from the same artwork, or two nozzles. And what I'm also going to do is bring in a second fire image. So let's do that now. So now we got this thing. It's pretty big. Just need to scale it down. I'll hold down Control to scale from the center and Control scroll wheel to zoom back in. It's still a little bit big. Something. I'm not going to use these top pieces, so I could scale it probably somewhere. And I don't think I'm going to use much of this bottom stuff here, so I could scale this something like that. Just making it as big as I need it to be. All right, so I could fast forward because I'm just going to repeat the same selection steps.
Rosenberg's H-bomb, Sugar Ray, Pamela John, Brando, the King and I, and the Catcher in the Rye. Eisenhower vaccine, England's got a new queen. Marciano, Liberace, sent Diana, and a goodbye. We did his heart on fire. It's been burning since the world's been turning. And for this fire, because it's from a different image, we can just move it over here a little bit. The colors don't match, so we need to make adjustments on that. So I'm going to click on my adjustments, go to curves, and if I start making changes, it's going to change all my layers, so we don't want that. What I do is click and drag this right down here, so I see this blue line. If I bring it to the left, it's going to move the curves layer below this fire layer, but just to show you, if I bring it down and not to the left over there, just right here, it's going to put it inside a group. And then if your little control area goes away, you just double click this icon. And as we make adjustments, it's only affecting this layer that it's grouped with. So we might have to adjust the contrast in the master eventually, but the most important thing right now is the reds. So let's go in here, bring the reds up. We could add more points onto this curve if it needs it. Let's go into the greens. And okay, so it's starting to look close.
Let's see here. I think that's probably it. I don't know if the blues are going to be much of a help. And then once I get the colors looking right, then I can start to look at contrast in this master here. And that's about as close as I can get it. It looks like it works. There's a little bit more yellow in this one, but I'm okay with how that's working. So now I don't want this to be a separate adjustment layer. So I'm going to right click on this layer and go to rasterize and trim. And now we basically have 3 different fire elements. And what I like to do is, just so that I have a little bit more, or it looks like more, I'm going to select all these, press Ctrl J, duplicate them, and then go to arrange, flip horizontal. And so basically, if we turn these all off, so we got one, and then we got another one just flipped. And so we're basically adding to our total amount of brushes. Now I'm going to shift select and turn them all on. I don't know if the brushes need to be square. Some programs like you to have a square brush, but I don't know if we really need that. And I also see I made a little mistake there. So I'm going to select this one, hit my eraser. Let's set the hardness down to 0. If you get any hard edges like this, it's not going to look good. Trust me, when you make it into a brush. So let's just clean some of that up. And all right, so that's going to work. All right, so yeah, like I was saying, I don't know if brushes need to be square, but the smaller the file size, the better. So I'm just going to crop this down here and go in one at a time. So I'll turn all these off, and I just go in and save this as a brush, save this one, save this one, save this one. So basically go to File, Export, PNG, making sure that you have the transparent background on, hit Export. I've got a bunch of these already, so I'm not going to hit save, but you just go through each one, turn this off, turn the next one on, and then repeat the process. Save that as a PNG. If you want to grab more fire, that's up to you. And the next thing I want to do is add some smoke, but I want to do that in another video so that this one doesn't end up being too long.